Hey, I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films, and before we get started, I want to ask you to do something for me. Just won't take but a second. Go ahead and hit that like button. It helps with the algorithm and all that. Now, recently, I've been watching a lot of giallo type of films. Those of you not familiar with giallo is an Italian murder mystery horror type of genre. It was popular in it. I guess it started in the 60s, around 1963 era, and then it became very popular in the late 60s and went through the 70s, and that was kind of its heyday. It eventually segued into what we know today as the slasher genre, which really became very popular with Halloween in 1978. But the giallo, it is kind of like a slasher, but it is very very different. And if you have ever seen one, you know what's up with it. Now, they often incorporate graphic violence and sexploitation, often gratuitous nudity and sometimes sex scenes. But it's really driven a lot of times by a central mystery. Like, there are people getting killed and you don't know who the killer is, and it's a mystery that you don't find out until at the end, which they kind of did that a little. They did that in the first Friday the 13th. They did almost, but that's really close to what a giallo is. When you find out who the killer is at the end, you don't know who it is. Now, the slashers eventually morphed into more. It became more like associated with it, like the actual villain, like Jason was this hockey mask killer, or Freddy. It became more about that and less about the mystery of who is the killer. Some examples of well-known ones, probably the best one is Deep Red, and also the bird with the crystal plumage. The one we're going to talk about today is a new Arrow 4K limited edition release of Torso. This was directed by Sergio Martino. Now, this was my first time seeing this film, and again, it does have some elements that I didn't necessarily see in Deep Red or some of the other giallo films. This one is closer to what a slasher film would be than most of the other giallos I've seen. A lot of times in an Italian giallo, you would have a main character who almost becomes a detective and starts to really kind of look into what's going on. You don't see it so much in this one. They have more. This is more of a reactive type of characters, and not like characters who really want to find out what's going on. So as far as what is going on in the film, here's how it goes down. So there is a sexual psychotic killer who goes after these women, and he kills them. He chokes them with this scarf around their necks, and then sometimes in some scenes he does different stuff to them. Like he keeps having these visions of these doll heads, and he like will poke their eyes out like it would be a doll's eyes. Sometimes he'll poke their eyes out after they're already dead, and then he'll like take a knife and cut open their sternum like this. So some of it's fairly graphic and gruesome. As far as the look of the killer, there's really two parts to this movie. There's the first part that takes place in a type of city area in Italy, where these kids are, or I guess they're going to college. They go into an institution, university in college, and so they're attending this college, and then some of the women there start to become victims of this killer. So when it shows the killer, he's wearing this mask. It's a beige or kind of gray mask, and it kind of stands out, and he's got holes cut in it, and it looks pretty cool. Later on in Opera, they have a similar mask, but Opera was later. It was more like black in that one, but it's a very simple mask, but it's very effective for the times that it does show him wearing this mask. During the second half of the film, several of the women from the college, they get together, and they want to go to this secluded villa that one of the girls' dads owns. So they travel there to get away from all the carnage, but the killer follows them there and stalks them, kind of like and this is kind of the very ending of this, especially the last 20 or 30 minutes, is very suspenseful, and it's one of the girls is is trapped in this villa, and the killer doesn't know she's there, and she's trying to hide from him, and he eventually figures out she is there. But that whole, it's very suspenseful, and it's a very well done sequence, and so I would recommend it, especially just for that whole part. It's very well done, and it does lead into what this is a very early example of a slasher film. Throughout the film, there are a lot of red herring type of characters, a bunch of men who are set up to be potential killers. Some of them a lot more obvious so than you would think. Now, I figured out who the killer was fairly early. I'm not going to say who it is in there, and it doesn't really matter. But it wasn't surprising to me, though. It was really the only character that it could have been without it being really obvious. Unlike Deep Red, it doesn't, or Friday the 13th, the first Friday the 13th, it doesn't suddenly, like, the killer isn't like a woman, so they don't pull out that one. But it is, but they do have a lot of men set up in this film, and very unlikable men who often are very, they glare at the women, they look at them as sexual objects and things of that nature, and they're fairly unlikable, and it sets them all up to be potential killers. Now, there is there's a fairly decent amount of nudity in the film, and there are some sex scenes. Now, another thing about giallos in general, they are often shot artistically. They do has some very artistic shots, and they're able to shoot the sex scenes without really showing the sex scenes. Like, it'll have like a close-up of a statue with sex or whatever's going on in the background. I mean, there's a few like orgy type of scenes set up, especially earlier on before they get into the second half. In the second half, when they get to the villa, two of the women are, I think they're either bi or they are completely lesbians, but they have some like potential lesbian encounter. Like, one of them comes in the room nude, and then they really start to get something going, and that's when some guy's looking in the window gawking at them, and then the killer actually chases that guy away and kills the guy, but they're alerted from it. So a lot of times when there is a sex scene about to go down, or a potential sex scene, it will cut, something will happen so it doesn't progress into like an actual true like porno type of sex scene. It is kind of soft core porn, but it doesn't go hardcore. They always find a way to get out of the sex going all the way into an actual sexual encounter in most cases. Now, let's take a look at this packaging here. Now, this is an Arrow limited edition 4K of this film. It doesn't have a thick box like some limited editions do, but it does have a very nice slip cover. And then on the inside, it has the same slip, and it does have the reverse of. Now, this is the original cover. This is so much better. This is so much better than this. This is almost, I don't know, it looks almost like a newspaper article or something. It is a newspaper, but I wouldn't even think, looking at that, I wouldn't have thought that it was a poster. Here's the 4K disc. Now, like typically with Arrow, there's only going to be a 4K disc. You're not going to have a Blu-ray in here. There's an advertisement for dolls for some reason. This limited edition version comes with a booklet. If you get the standard edition, which will eventually come out, it probably won't have this booklet or the slip cover. But the booklet has some information about the film in it, and including some information about the transfer. Now, I thought the transfer looked very nice. It looks very organic to me when I was watching the film. A lot of detail in the closer shots. It didn't look extremely sharp, but it looked, I guess the best way to describe it is organic. The film grain it wasn't like you're watching it and you see a lot of film grain, so it was cleaned up a lot, but the grain was still kind of there, but it wasn't there in a distracting way. So I'm going to read about the actual transfer, if I can find, so about the restoration. So the 35mm, the original 35mm camera negative was scanned in 4K resolution. The film was restored in 4K and graded in HDR10 at R3 Store Studios, London. And so they actually did some color grading on this, so it does look very nice for what it is. And 1973 movie shot on film. A lot of times when you have these 4K upgrades, they look significantly better than most people have ever seen them look. And I've never seen this film, but I think it's certainly going to be the case with watching this movie. Now, in general, I think Arrow did a good job with this set. I'm going to go ahead and give Arrow's packaging a 4 because I do like the slip cover. Clearly, it would have been better if it had a box, but for that, I'm going to give it a 4, leaning towards a 3.5. And for the film itself, I'm also going to rate it a 4, maybe leaning towards a 3.5 as well. But I did like the film. At the same time, like I was saying earlier, I'm kind of a little tired of watching Giallo films, and I do have some more I might watch in the near future. I've got 2 potential ones, but I want to watch some other stuff between them. Anyway, if you've seen this film, let me know what you think. I'm Dave Watkins, Watkins Films, and if you would like this video, if you haven't done so already, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.